The stars looked different today. In the Deep Space Observation Station orbiting Earth, Commander Jake Miller stared at the screen in front of him. 3 small blips had appeared on the radar, moving in ways that no human technology could match. They were fast. Too fast. "Lisa, come take a look at this," Jake called to his partner, Captain Lisa Brown, who was checking the morning reports in the next room. Lisa walked over, coffee cup in hand. She looked at the screen and frowned. "What are we looking at, Jake?" "I'm Kim." "Not sure. They appeared about 10 minutes ago. Look at their speed, and the way they move. It's not natural." Lisa put down her coffee and pulled up a chair. She started typing commands into the computer. "These readings don't make sense. According to this, they're using some kind of energy field we've never seen before." Far away, in the heart of the Zerathi Empire, Emperor Vex sat on his golden throne. Around him, his generals stood in perfect formation. The throne room was vast, with walls that reached so high they disappeared into darkness above. Holographic displays showed star systems, trade routes, and military formations. "My Emperor," said General Zort, his second in command. "Our scouts have found a new target, a small blue planet in the frontier regions. Initial scans show primitive technology, basic fusion engines, early space travel. No significant military presence." Emperor Vex leaned forward. His pale skin gleamed under the artificial light. His eyes, large and dark, focused on the hologram of Earth that appeared before him. "How many ships do they have?" "Fewer than 100, my Emperor. All small vessels used mainly for transport and basic defense. Their largest ship is no bigger than our smallest scout vessel." The Emperor smiled. In 12 star systems, no world had ever resisted the Zerathi Empire. Some surrendered willingly. Others tried to fight but were quickly overwhelmed. This small blue planet would be no different. "Prepare the advance fleet," Emperor Vex declared. 50 warships should be more than enough. I want this world added to our empire within 2 cycles. Back on Earth, Jake and Lisa continued to monitor the strange signals. More blips appeared on their screens. The original 3 had become 6, then 9, then 12. "We need to tell command," Lisa said, reaching for the communication device. "Wait." Jake stopped her. "Look at this pattern. They're not just moving randomly. They're scanning us. These have to be alien probes." Lisa's heart raced. First contact. It was something humanity had dreamed about for centuries. But something felt wrong about this. The movement patterns were too aggressive, too systematic. "Command, this is Observation Station Alpha 7, Lisa spoke into the microphone. "We have multiple unknown contacts in our sector. They appear to be of non-human origin. Requesting immediate backup." The response came quickly. "Alpha 7, this is Command. Are you certain these are non-human?" "Affirmative, Command. Their technology is far beyond anything we possess. We're tracking 12 objects moving at impossible speeds." "Understood. Maintain observation. Fleet units are being dispatched to your location." Jake and Lisa spent the next few hours watching. The probes. They moved with purpose, scanning different parts of Earth's solar system. They checked each planet, cataloged the asteroids, and measured the sun's output. It was clear they were gathering intelligence. "They're mapping us," Jake whispered. "Like we're a target." Lisa nodded grimly. "We need to stop one of these probes. If we can capture it, maybe we can learn something about them." Jake knew she was right. Earth needed to know what it was dealing with. He opened a communication channel to the approaching Earth defense ships. "Earth Defense Force, this is Alpha 7. We have an idea. Can you help us trap one of these probes?" Captain Steve Parker of the Earth Defense Force responded from his ship. "Alpha 7, we're listening. What's your plan?" "We've been studying their movement patterns. They seem to avoid our planet's magnetic field. If we can create a disruption in the field, we might be able to slow one down long enough to capture it." There was a pause. "That's dangerous, Alpha 7. We don't know what these things are capable of." "We don't have a choice," Lisa interrupted. "We need information." Captain Parker considered this. His crew was ready for anything, but capturing alien technology was beyond what they had trained for. Still, Lisa was right. They needed to know what they were facing. All right, Alpha 7, we'll support your plan. Guide us through it. Jake and Lisa worked quickly. They used the station's limited capabilities to create a magnetic pulse. When one of the probes came close, they released the pulse. The alien craft immediately changed direction, but it was moving too fast. It glanced off the magnetic field and tumbled out of control. Now, Jake shouted. Captain Parker's ship moved in quickly, using a tractor beam to catch the spinning probe. For a moment, it looked like the plan had failed. The probe systems tried to self-destruct, but Lisa was ready. She had already identified the power signature and knew how to disrupt it. The probe went dark and was pulled into the Earthship's cargo hold. Got it, Captain Parker announced. Good work, you two. We're heading back to Earth. This changes everything. Jake and Lisa watched as the Earth Defense Force ship disappeared from their screens, carrying the captured alien probe. Around them, the remaining probes suddenly turned and headed away from Earth's solar system. They had been discovered, and now they were retreating. We did it, Lisa said, but she didn't feel victorious. They'll be back, won't they? Jake nodded. But now we have a chance to prepare. On the Zarathi flagship, General Zort received the bad news. My Emperor, we've lost contact with Probe Unit 12. The primitives have captured it. Emperor Vex's expression darkened. Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. It appears they use their planet's natural magnetic field as a weapon. We underestimated their ingenuity. The Emperor stood up. No world had ever captured Zarathi technology. This small blue planet was already proving to be different from their usual conquests. Accelerate our timeline, he ordered. I want the full advance fleet ready immediately. These primitives must not have time to study our technology. We attack at first light. Back on Earth, Dr. Sam Davis and his team at the Global Defense Research Institute worked around the clock. The captured probe was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its technology was based on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. Look at this, Dr. Davis said to his colleague, Dr. Helen Clark. The entire ship is powered by quantum field manipulation. If we can understand this, we can adapt it to our own defenses. But we have so little time, Dr. Clark replied. If they send probes, they'll send ships, real warships. Then we better work fast, get everyone in here, I don't care what time it is. We have a world to save. General Mike Thompson walked into the war room at United Earth Defense Headquarters. Maps, charts, and holographic displays covered every surface. His staff was already hard at work, preparing for what might be humanity's greatest challenge. What's our status? He asked his aide. Sir, we've analyzed the probe's flight path. Based on its origin point, we estimate the main alien force could arrive within days, maybe a week at most. General Thompson looked at the tactical display. Earth's defenses had been designed for conflicts with other humans, not alien invaders. They would need to adapt quickly. Contact all bases, full alert status, and get me everything our scientists learn about that probe. Every detail could save lives. As night fell across Earth, millions of people went to sleep unaware that their world had just made first contact with an alien empire. In secret facilities and military bases, humanity's best minds worked frantically to prepare for war. Jake Miller and Lisa Brown remained at their observation station watching the stars. They had started something that would change Earth forever. The question now was whether humanity would survive what was coming. The first probe capture was just the beginning. Earth had announced its presence to the galaxy, and the Zarathi Empire was coming to make humanity regret it. The morning sun hadn't risen yet when Admiral Kate Wilson received the alert. She sat in her command chair on Earth's newest space station, looking out at the darkness between stars. Her coffee had gone cold, forgotten as she studied the tactical displays. Admiral, her communications officer called out, "We're detecting multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. 50 ships, all matching the signature from the captured probe." Kate took a deep breath. This was it, the first real test of humanity's defenses against an alien empire. She had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, she wondered if they were truly ready. Sound general quarters, all fighters to launch positions, and get me General Thompson on the line. The Zirathi advance. Fleet moved through space with precision. Each ship was a testament to their empire's power. Massive warships, each capable of destroying a planet, formed perfect attack formations. On the lead ship, Commander Drock felt confident. His orders were simple. Demonstrate overwhelming force and demand surrender. Signal the primitive world, he told his communication officer. Tell them they have one solar rotation to submit to. Imperial law. Any resistance will be met with total destruction. On Earth, Admiral Kate Wilson listened to the alien message being translated by the computers that had analyzed the captured probe. "One day to surrender," she said to General Thompson, who appeared on her screen. "They're not wasting time." "Good," General Thompson replied. "Neither are we. The asteroid belt is ready. Our fighter squadrons are armed with the new weapons, and Colonel Johnson's ground forces are in position." Admiral Wilson nodded. "Then we give them our answer. All units, prepare for combat." The first phase of Earth's defense plan was unconventional. Instead of meeting the Zirathi in open space, where their superior numbers would triumph, Admiral Wilson had decided to use the asteroid belt as cover. Hundreds of fighters launched from hidden bases, disappearing behind rocks the size of mountains. Ben Carter strapped into his fighter, hands trembling slightly. He was 25 years old, one of Earth's best pilots, but he had never flown against aliens before. His fighter had been modified with technology copied from the captured probe. It wasn't as advanced as the Zirathi ships, but it was something. "Green. Squadron, this is your leader," Ben spoke into his radio. "Remember your training, we're faster than they are, more creative. Use the asteroids, hit and run, never stay in one place." Through his cockpit, Ben could see the massive Zirathi warships approaching. They moved in neat lines, their shields glowing like blue stars. It looked impossible. 50 giant ships against Earth's small fighters. "All fighters, this is Admiral Wilson. Today we show them that humans don't surrender. Today we fight for our world. Engage at will." Ben pushed his engines to full power and dove toward the nearest Zirathi warship. His targeting system, enhanced with alien technology, locked onto the enemy shields. He fired. Blue lasers shot out, striking the massive ship. The Zirathi crew barely noticed. On their bridge, alarms sounded briefly before stopping. "Commander," Drock looked at his tactical display with annoyance. "Primitive attacks. Their weapons are like insects against our shields. Ignore them and continue the advance." But Ben and the other pilots had a plan. They didn't expect their weapons to penetrate the shields directly. Instead, they targeted specific points, trying to overload the shield generators. 10 fighters focused their fire on one section of the lead ship's shields. "Keep firing," Ben shouted. "Concentrate on the forward shield emitter." The Zirathi shields began to flicker. Commander Drock frowned. This shouldn't be happening. The primitives' weapons were too weak to affect their shields. "Return fire. Destroy these gnats." The Zirathi warships turned their weapons on the fighters. Massive energy beams swept through space, but the humans were ready. They scattered behind asteroids, using the rocks as shields. The Zirathi beams vaporized chunks of asteroid, creating clouds of dust and debris. "Use the debris," Admiral Wilson commanded from her station. "Make it harder for them to see you." Ben led his squadron through the chaos. His heart pounded as energy beams passed dangerously close to his fighter. But he had been right. Human reflexes were faster than the alien automated systems. When a beam came toward him, he could dodge at the last second. "This is why they rely on computers," Ben muttered, rolling his fighter to avoid another blast. "They can't think fast enough." The battle in the asteroid belt continued for hours. The Zirathi found themselves frustrated. Their massive ships were designed for fighting other fleets in open space, not chasing small fighters through a maze of rocks. Every time they locked onto a target, it disappeared behind an asteroid or into a cloud of debris. On the ground, Colonel Amy Johnson watched the space battle through satellite feeds. Her Marines were ready, but she hoped it wouldn't come to that. She had prepared every major city, every mountain range, every river crossing as a potential battlefield. Earth's diverse environment would be their ally if the aliens landed. "Colonel," her aide, Lieutenant Tom Lewis, announced, "reports coming in from orbit. Our fighters are holding their own. The Zerathi can't effectively target them in the asteroid field. Good. But they'll adapt. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. In space, the battle was reaching a critical point. The Zerathi had lost 2 smaller ships to coordinated fighter attacks. The humans had discovered that if enough fighters concentrated their fire on one spot for long enough, they could punch through the shields and hit the hull directly. Commander Drock was angry now. This is taking too long. Deploy the assault shuttles. If we cannot destroy them quickly in space, we will take the planet directly. Dark shapes launched from the Zerathi warships. Hundreds of assault shuttles, each carrying thousands of troops, headed toward Earth. Admiral Wilson saw them coming. All ground forces prepare for orbital assault. Fighters switch to defensive positions, protect our cities. Ben looked at his fuel gauge. He was running low after hours of combat. But seeing the assault shuttles gave him new energy. Green Squadron, form up on me. We're going after those transports. The fighters regrouped and dove toward the incoming shuttles. These were larger targets, easier to hit, but they had heavy armor. Ben led the attack, his computer calculating the best approach. Target their engines, slow them down. The space around Earth became a battlefield unlike anything in history. Fighters danced between assault shuttles, trying to disable them before they could reach the planet's surface. Some made it through, beginning their descent into Earth's atmosphere. Colonel Johnson activated her communication system. All units, incoming enemy forces, multiple landing zones confirmed. Execute defense. Plan Omega. Around the world, human soldiers took positions. In the mountains of Colorado, teams prepared to use the terrain against the invaders. In the forests of Canada, special forces set up ambushes. In the deserts of Africa, units buried themselves in the sand, waiting. The first Zerathi shuttles landed in remote areas as expected. The aliens had chosen locations away from major population centers, planning to establish secure beachheads before advancing. But this was exactly what Colonel Johnson had predicted. Every landing zone had been prepared with surprises. In a forest clearing, Zerathi troops marched out of their landed shuttle. They wore advanced armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. To them, this mission was routine. They had conquered dozens of worlds. Hidden in the trees, a team of human special forces waited. They had spent days studying footage from the captured probe, learning about Zerathi equipment and tactics. When the aliens were halfway across the clearing, the humans struck. The forest erupted with small arms fire, explosions, and chaos. The Zerathi troops tried to respond, but the humans used hit-and-run tactics. They fired from concealment, then moved before the aliens could return fire. They're using primitive kinetic weapons. One Zerathi soldier reported over his radio. Our armor is effective, but they know our weak points. This was happening at landing zones around the world. The Zerathi found themselves fighting a different kind of battle than they were used to. In space, they faced nimble fighters they couldn't catch. On the ground, they faced enemies who knew every rock, every tree, every hiding place. Admiral Wilson monitored the global situation from her command center. The first wave wasn't going as the Zerathi had planned, but it wasn't over either. She knew this was just the beginning. Status report, she called out. Admiral, we've lost 12% of our fighter force, but we've disabled 15 enemy assault shuttles. Ground forces report mixed results, but they're holding their positions. Kate nodded. And the main Zerathi fleet? They're regrouping. It looks like they're preparing for a more concentrated assault. Through the view screen, Kate could see the distant lights of the Zerathi warships. They had learned their first lesson about humanity. Now it was time to see how they would adapt. All units, prepare for Phase 2. They'll be coming harder this time. The first battle was over, but the war had just begun. The rain fell hard over the Global Defense Research Institute. Dr. Sam Davis looked out the window, watching the security teams move equipment through the muddy grounds. 3 days of constant fighting had left everyone exhausted. But there was no time to rest. Sam, you need to see this, Dr. Helen Clark called from across the lab. She stood before a holographic display, surrounded by the remains of Zerathi technology they had gathered from the battlefield. Sam walked over, his coffee mug in one hand and a tablet in the other. The hologram showed a complex energy pattern that seemed to pulse and shift. "What are we looking at?" he asked. "The quantum field that powers their shields," Helen explained. "I've been studying it for hours. There's something strange about how it interacts with our atmosphere." Sam studied the pattern. "Show me the interaction." Helen pressed a button, and the display changed. It now showed Earth's atmosphere overlaid with the Zarathi quantum field. Where they met, there were ripples and distortions. "Our planet's magnetic field creates interference," Helen said. "The Zarathi don't seem to know this. Their shields work perfectly in space, but near Earth they become unstable." Sam's eyes widened. "Can we use this?" "I think so. If we can amplify the interference, we might be able to disrupt their shields completely." Across the city, Commander Steve Parker prepared for the most dangerous mission of his life. His team had been selected to infiltrate a damaged Zarathi warship that had crash-landed in the Arctic. The ship was partially buried in ice, but its main systems were still active. "Remember the plan," Steve told his team as they gathered in the briefing room. "Maria, you handle the technical stuff. Tom, you're on communications. We get in, grab their data, and get out. No heroics." Maria Garcia, the team's tech specialist, checked her equipment one last time. "The cold will help mask our heat signatures, but we'll need to move fast once we're inside." Tom Lewis, the communications expert, adjusted his headset. "I've been studying the alien language patterns from the probe. I should be able to navigate their computer systems." The team flew north in a stealth aircraft, arriving at the crash site under cover of darkness. The Zarathi ship looked like a black mountain rising from the white landscape. Despite the crash, it was still massive, at least 300 meters long. "Movement detected," their scout reported. "Alien patrols around the perimeter, looks like about 20 units. Steve nodded. "They're probably protecting something important. Let's use the blizzard as cover." The Arctic wind howled as the team crept toward the ship. The Zarathi patrols moved in mechanical patterns, clearly following programmed routes. Steve led his team between the patrols, timing their movements perfectly. They found an access port that had been damaged in the crash. Maria worked her magic, using a combination of Earth technology and knowledge gained from the captured probe to open it. "We're in," she whispered. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lighting flickered along the corridors, casting strange shadows. The team moved silently, following the architectural patterns Tom had memorized from their probe analysis. "Command. Center should be this way," Tom said, pointing down a corridor that angled upward. They encountered no resistance inside. The crash had killed or injured most of the crew, and the survivors were apparently focused on external defense. After 15 minutes of careful movement, they reached the command center. The room was vast, filled with holographic displays and control stations. Bodies of Zarathi crew members lay where they had died during the crash. Tom immediately went to work on the main computer console. "Got it," he said after a few minutes. "I'm downloading everything. Maps, military doctrine, communication codes, and wait, there's something about their emperor." "What about him?" Steve asked, keeping watch. "His location. He's coming personally to oversee Earth's conquest. And there's more. Their entire command structure is based on direct orders from the top. If something happens to the Emperor, their forces would be leaderless." Maria had found something else. "Commander, look at this. Their entire fleet has a weakness. They use a central quantum computing system that coordinates all their ships. If we could access it, we could cripple their entire fleet," Steve finished. "Download everything, we're leaving." The extraction went smoothly, but as they prepared to leave, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Zarathi had discovered the intrusion. "Run!" Steve shouted. The team raced through the corridors as Zarathi forces mobilized. Energy weapons fired behind them, burning holes in the metal walls. They reached the access port just as heavily armored. Zarathi soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor. Outside, the blizzard had intensified. The team ran through the snow, the alien ship fading behind them in the white chaos. They didn't stop until they reached their extraction point. "Command. This is Parker," Steve called on his radio. "We've got the package. bringing home some very interesting information. Back at Earth's Weather Satellite Control Center, engineer Rachel White made a startling discovery. She had been trying to modify the weather monitoring system to better track Zerathi movements when she noticed something unusual. "Boss, come look at this," she called to her supervisor. The supervisor, an older man named Bill, walked over to her console. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Something's very right," Rachel said, bringing up a display. "I've been comparing our weather data with reports of Zerathi ship movements. Their stealth technology doesn't work properly in certain weather conditions." Bill raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Their cloaking devices use quantum fluctuations to bend light around their ships. But our weather systems, especially during storms, create electromagnetic disturbances that interfere with those fluctuations. So we can see them in bad weather?" "Not just see them," Rachel grinned. "We can track them. Every storm over our planet essentially becomes a giant radar system for detecting cloaked Zerathi ships." Bill immediately understood the implications. "Get this information to Admiral Wilson right away. This could change everything." In the Research Institute, Sam and Helen worked frantically. They had made a breakthrough. By combining their knowledge of Zerathi quantum fields with Earth's unique magnetic properties, they had developed a weapon. "It's not exactly a weapon," Helen corrected as she showed the device to General Thompson. "More like a quantum interference generator. When activated, it creates waves that disrupt Zerathi technology." General Thompson looked at the device, which was about the size of a small car. "How does it work?" "We broadcast quantum interference on the same frequency their technology uses," Sam explained. "It's like having a key to their lock, but instead of opening the door, we break it." "How many of these can you build?" "With our current resources, maybe 20, but we only need a few if we place them strategically." The general nodded. "Do it. How long until they're ready?" 3 days, maybe 4, Helen replied. "Make it 3. We're running out of time." While the scientists worked, President Sarah Miller convened an emergency session with her advisors. The information from Steve Parker's mission had provided a complete picture of what Earth was facing. "They have over 1,000 ships," her military advisor reported. "But their command structure is rigid. Cut off the head, and the body dies." "And their emperor is coming here personally?" the president asked. "According to the intelligence, yes. He wants to oversee Earth's conquest personally. It's apparently unprecedented for an emperor to lead an invasion force directly." The president leaned back in her chair. "So he's arrogant. He doesn't expect us to put up much of a fight." "That's our assessment, Madam President. Their entire strategy is based on overwhelming force and quick surrender. They've never faced extended resistance. Then, we give them something they've never experienced before." The room fell silent as the president considered their options. Finally, she spoke. "We use every advantage we have. The weather tracking, the quantum interference devices, everything. And we prepare a special welcome for their emperor." Around the world, humanity mobilized. The breakthrough discoveries were shared with all defense forces. Weather centers became military installations. Scientists worked alongside soldiers. Cities prepared not just for invasion, but for prolonged warfare. In the Arctic, Steve Parker briefed Admiral Wilson on what his team had discovered. The admiral listened intently, her mind already working on how to use this information. "A central computing system," she mused. "If we could reach it, it would be like unplugging their entire fleet at once," Steve confirmed. Admiral Wilson smiled grimly. "Then that's our new primary objective. We stop playing defense, it's time to take the fight to them." The Zerathi Empire was about to learn that humans didn't just adapt to survive. They innovated to win. The massive Zerathi armada appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark cloud covering the stars. Over 1,000 warships, each one larger than Earth's biggest building, moved with terrible purpose. Emperor Vex himself commanded. The flagship, a vessel so enormous it had its own artificial gravity systems for entire cities within its hull. "My Emperor," General Zort reported, standing at attention in the command center. "The advanced fleet reports stronger resistance than expected. The primitives have somehow acquired our technology. Emperor Vex turned his pale face toward his general. Impossible. No primitive race has ever adapted our technology. Nevertheless, my Emperor, they have. And they are using their planet's unique properties against us. Our losses are significant. The Emperor's dark eyes narrowed. Then we will show them what real power looks like. Deploy the entire armada. I want this planet broken, its people scattered. Let this be a lesson to any world that dares resist the Empire. On Earth, Admiral Kate Wilson watched the sensor readings with growing concern. The command center buzzed with activity as reports came in from observation stations, weather satellites, and deep space monitors. Admiral, her tactical officer called out, final count on the incoming fleet. 1,037 ships, including a supermassive vessel that our computers can't even properly classify. That's their Emperor's ship, Admiral Wilson said grimly. Intelligence warned us he was coming personally. Activate Terra's wrath. All units, all systems, everything we've prepared comes online now. General Thompson appeared on the main screen. Kate, ground forces are in position. Every mountain, every city, every forest has been prepared. The new quantum weapons are online and positioned. Good. Because we're about to find out if our plan works. The first phase of Terra's wrath was simple. Instead of meeting the Zerathi, in space, Earth would use its entire environment as a weapon. Rachel White's discovery about weather interference had been expanded. Every weather system on the planet had been modified to create maximum electromagnetic disruption. Activate atmospheric defense grid, Admiral Wilson commanded. Around the planet, modified weather satellites and ground stations began working in harmony. Storms were artificially intensified, creating a shell of electromagnetic chaos around Earth. The Zerathi ships, expecting clear targeting, found their systems confused and disrupted. What is happening? Emperor Vex demanded as his ship's displays flickered. Why are our targeting systems failing? The primitives are using their own atmosphere against us, General Zort reported, struggling to maintain calm. Their weather is creating interference with our quantum systems. Ben Carter strapped into his fighter for what might be the last time. Around him, hundreds of other pilots did the same. The entire Earth fighter force was launching, but this time they had support beyond the asteroid belt. All fighters, this is Admiral Wilson, came the voice over their radios. The quantum interference devices are active. Enemy shields are at 60% effectiveness. This is our chance. Ben launched with his squadron, diving into the chaotic space around Earth. The scene was unlike anything from the first battles. Zerathi ships struggled with failing systems while human fighters, adapted to work in the electromagnetic chaos, moved with precision. Green Squadron, target the destroyer-class ships first, Ben commanded. Their shields are weakest right now. The human fighters swarmed like angry bees around the Zerathi vessels. Their weapons, enhanced with quantum interference technology, carved through the weakened shields. For the first time in the war, Earth's fighters were winning in direct combat. The ground, Colonel Amy Johnson prepared for the largest battle in human history. The Zerathi, frustrated by the space battle, were landing troops everywhere. But this was exactly what she had planned for. All units, the enemy is landing at every predicted location, she reported to General Thompson. Executing containment protocols. The Zerathi ground forces found themselves in a nightmare. Every landing zone had been carefully chosen by the humans to maximize defensive advantages. In mountain valleys, entire armies waited in ambush. In cities, buildings had been converted into fortresses connected by underground tunnels. In forests, the trees themselves seemed to be fighting. Marine Squad leader John Wood led his team through the ruins of Denver, where Zerathi forces had established a command post. His Marines had trained for months in urban warfare, turning every street corner into a potential trap. Contact 3 blocks ahead, his point man whispered into the radio. Remember the drill, John replied. These boys never had to fight in cities before. Use it against them. The Marines moved through buildings, popping up to fire from windows before disappearing into carefully prepared escape routes. The Zerathi, troops advanced as they were, found themselves unable to adapt to the 3-dimensional battlefield of an Earth city. In the Pacific Northwest, Another battle raged in the dense forests. The Zerathi had expected to easily sweep through the woods, but they hadn't counted on humanity's experience with forest warfare. Lieutenant Sarah Miller led a company of soldiers in hit-and-run attacks. They used the forest like a maze, striking quickly and fading back into the green before the Zerathi could respond. "Tree line 200 meters, her sergeant called out. "Enemy patrol moving east." "Set the trap," Sarah ordered. "Remember, they can't tell our body heat apart from the wildlife. Let them get close." The Zerathi patrol marched confidently through the forest, their advanced sensors somehow failing to detect the humans hiding mere feet away. When Sarah gave the signal, the forest exploded with gunfire. Within minutes, the patrol was neutralized, and the humans had vanished like ghosts. High, above the battle, the quantum interference devices had turned the tide in space. Dr. Sam Davis monitored the devices from a secure bunker, watching as Zerathi ships lost system after system. "Increase the frequency by 20%, he told his team. "Their main computers are adapting, but slowly." On the Zerathi flagship, Emperor Vex faced something he had never experienced before: defeat. His fleet, once invincible, was being systematically dismantled by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. "Sir, all ground forces report heavy resistance," General Zord announced. "They're taking massive casualties. The primitives seem to know exactly where we will attack." "And our ships? Shields are failing across the fleet. Our quantum systems can't function properly in this electromagnetic environment. We're losing 3 ships for every one of theirs." Emperor Vex slammed his fist on the command console. "This is impossible. No world has ever resisted us like this." But what frustrated him most was how Earth's forces fought. The Zerathi military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and fear. When that failed, they had no backup strategy. Humans, on the other hand, seemed to thrive on adaptation and creativity. Admiral Wilson seized the moment. The Zerathi fleet was in disarray. Their ground forces were bogged down, and their command structure was showing signs of strain. It was time for the boldest move yet. "All forces, initiate final phase of Terra's wrath," she announced. "Target, the Emperor's flagship. End this now." Every available Earthship, fighter, and weapon system turned toward the massive Zerathi command vessel. The Emperor's ship had weapons that could destroy planets, but its shields were fluctuating from the quantum interference. Ben Carter led the fighter assault, diving directly at the flagship's bridge. "All fighters concentrate fire on the command section. Let's give their Emperor a proper welcome to Earth." The space around the flagship became a maelstrom of fire and energy. Human fighters weaved between defensive fire, their pilots using reflexes and intuition that no Zerathi computer could match. Marine assault shuttles, protected by the fighter cover, actually began boarding the enemy flagship. Colonel Amy Johnson's ground forces, having contained the initial landing, now went on the offensive. Using captured Zerathi technology and their own innovations, human forces began attacking the enemy beachheads. "Push them back to their ships," she ordered through the command network. "Don't let them regroup." For the first time in its long history, the Zerathi Empire was not just facing resistance, it was facing defeat. The perfect order of their fleet was breaking down into chaos. Ground forces that had never experienced prolonged combat were in full retreat across multiple continents. Emperor Vex watched his empire's myth of invincibility crumble around him. These humans had done something impossible. They had turned their weaknesses into strengths, their planet into a weapon, and their creativity into a military doctrine the Zerathi couldn't counter. "My Emperor," General Zort said quietly. "Perhaps we should consider—" "Never," Vex thundered. "The Empire does not retreat. I will deal with these primitives personally." But even as the Emperor spoke, human commandos were cutting their way through his ship's corridors. Quantum interference was shutting down his flagship's weapons, and Earth's fighters were closing in on the bridge itself. The turning point had come. Earth would either win completely or fall trying. There would be no middle ground in this war. Commander Jack Anderson and his Special Forces team moved through the corridors of the Zerathi flagship like shadows. The ship's massive size worked in their favor. Most of the Zerathi crew was focused on the space battle outside. leaving the internal corridors poorly defended. "Bridge is 2 levels up," whispered Emma Turner, the team's stealth specialist. She checked her modified scanner, stolen from a captured Zarathi ground trooper. "Minimal security. Most of their forces are at the outer defense points," Jack signaled his team forward. They had trained on mock-ups built from the intelligence Steve Parker's team had gathered, but the real thing was even more massive than expected. Every corridor could fit a tank. Every door required special alien codes that Emma had memorized during weeks of preparation. On the bridge of the flagship, Emperor Vex watched his empire crumble. Screens showed Zarathi ships exploding, ground, troops in retreat, entire systems failing across his fleet. For the first time in his long life, doubt crept into his thoughts. "My Emperor," General Zort said urgently. "We must withdraw. The fleet is taking catastrophic losses." "The Empire has never retreated," Vex replied, but his voice lacked its usual authority. "Never in 5,000 years of conquest." "Because we have never faced an enemy like this," Zord insisted. "Look at them. They fight with spirit, not just technology. They adapt, they improvise. Our doctrine assumes enemies will break when faced with overwhelming force, but these humans—" "Silence," Vex snapped, though he knew his general spoke truth. The Zarathi Empire had bred out creativity, independence, and adaptability in favor of perfect obedience. It made for efficient government but poor generals when facing the unexpected. Jack's team reached the bridge level. Through the massive doors they could hear the alien voices discussing retreat, but they had a more important mission than capturing the Emperor. They needed to reach the central command console. "Emma, can you access their main system?" Jack whispered. Emma pulled out a device Dr. Sam Davis had modified specifically for this mission. "The quantum interface should work. Once I'm in, I can upload the virus Dr. Helen Clark designed." The virus was humanity's master stroke. Not a destroying program, but a translating one. It would force every Zarathi ship to broadcast surrender, messages in their own language while simultaneously shutting down their weapons systems. The team bypassed the bridge guards using stealth technology stolen from crashed Zarathi ships. Inside, Emperor Vex stood at the center of the command room, arguing with his generals. None of them noticed the humans slip along the walls toward the main computer interface. Emma reached the console and began connecting her device. Her fingers flew over keys that seemed designed for different hands, but her training paid off. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as she hacked into the heart of the Zarathi fleet. "Almost there," she whispered. "Just need 30 more seconds." That's when the alarms started blaring. A guard had finally noticed them. "Intruders, protect the Emperor." Jack's team opened fire, their weapons set to stun rather than kill. Bodies dropped as energy beams flew across the bridge. Jack tackled a Zarathi soldier who got too close to Emma, while other team members created a defensive perimeter. Emperor. Vex stared in shock as human soldiers fought on his bridge. These were the primitives his empire had dismissed. These warriors who had developed countermeasures for every Zarathi weapon, who turned their own planet into a trap. "Got it," Emma shouted. "Virus uploaded. Activating now." Across the Zarathi fleet, something unprecedented happened. Every ship, from the largest warships to the smallest scouts, began broadcasting the same message in the Zarathi language. "Attention all Zarathi forces. This is Emperor Vex. The war is over. Lay down your arms and prepare for diplomatic negotiations. The Empire surrenders to Earth." On Zarathi ships throughout the fleet, soldiers froze in confusion. Their entire chain of command was built on absolute obedience to the Emperor. If the Emperor said surrender, they surrendered. Weapons powered down, shields dropped. The attack ground to a halt. But Emperor Vex had not given that order. He stood on his bridge, watching as his own voice betrayed him. The human virus had taken control of every communication system in the fleet. "Clever," he admitted, looking at Jack's team. "Your species does not just adapt. You predict. You planned for this exact moment." Jack kept his weapon trained on the Emperor but nodded. "We studied you. We learned how your command structure works. We knew that if the Emperor spoke, everyone would listen." General Zort lowered his weapon. Around the bridge, other Zarathi officers did the same. The game was over, and surprisingly, some of them looked relieved. "My Emperor," Zort said quietly, "perhaps it is time to admit the truth. We have never faced a species like this because we have become weak. Our empire bred out the very qualities these humans possess: courage, creativity, the ability to grow stronger in the face of adversity." Admiral Kate Wilson's voice came over the ship's communication system, somehow bypassing all Zarathi security. "Emperor Vex, this is Admiral Wilson of Earth Defense Command. Your fleet has surrendered. Will you honor that surrender?" Emperor Vex looked around his bridge, at his loyal generals who had served him faithfully, at the human soldiers who had outsmarted an empire, at the screens showing his fleet, powerless but intact. "Admiral Wilson," he spoke into the air, knowing she could hear him. "I am Emperor Vex. What the virus broadcast was not my order, but perhaps it should have been. The Zarathi Empire formally surrenders to Earth." The words hung in the air, impossible yet real. An empire that had never known defeat accepting its first surrender. Months later, in a rebuilt United Nations building in New York, Admiral Kate Wilson stood before a gathering of humans and Zarathi. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. "Today marks 6 months since the Zarathi War ended," she announced. "Today also marks the beginning of a new era, not just for Earth, but for the entire known galaxy." Behind her, former Emperor Vex sat with other Zarathi leaders. He no longer wore the title of Emperor. The Zarathi Empire was restructuring, becoming something new. Some called it the Zarathi Federation. Others simply called it change. Ben Carter, decorated pilot and now training instructor, watched from the audience. Next to him sat Dr. Sam Davis, whose quantum interference devices had turned the tide of war. Throughout the hall, humans and Zarathi mixed, sharing knowledge and stories. "The Zarathi came to conquer us," Admiral Wilson continued. "Instead, they taught us that the galaxy was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. And we, in turn, taught them something their empire had forgotten. That strength comes not from control, but from adaptation. Not from fear, but from cooperation." Vex raised his hand to speak, something he hadn't done in centuries as Emperor. Kate nodded to him. "Admiral Wilson speaks truth," Vex said, his accent still strange but his English improving. "The Empire set its sights on Earth to add another, conquered world. Instead, we found something our empire had lost long ago. We found teachers." The hall erupted in applause, both human and Zarathi. Outside the windows, construction ships of both species worked together, building the first joint embassy science station. Beyond that, the stars beckoned with promises of new worlds to explore, new species to meet, new knowledge to gain. Jack Anderson, standing with his Special Forces team, smiled as he watched the ceremony. They had planned for war but achieved something better. Emma Turner elbowed him gently. "Never thought we'd end up here, did you?" "Nope," Jack replied. "But that's what humans do best. We adapt, we improvise, we make the unexpected happen." The ceremony continued with speeches about cooperation, shared technology, and mutual defense. Earth had earned its place in the galaxy, not by conquest, but by refusing to be conquered. The Zarathi Empire had learned that true strength came not from dominating others, but from learning from them. As delegates filed out of the building, Kate Wilson stood at a window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there were other empires, other worlds, other challenges. But Earth was ready. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons or their technology. It was in their refusal to give up, in their ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. In their stubborn, creative, indomitable spirit that said, "You picked the wrong planet to mess with." And in the years that followed, as Earth expanded into the stars alongside their former enemies, that spirit would light the way forward into a galaxy full of infinite possibilities.